just when you think that you've seen and or heard or read about the craziest things in the world of sport and the world of COVID-19, this is just extraordinary. Most people, I think, would have, and certainly last year, it just would have been postponed, wouldn't it? But well, the English pride themselves on their resilience, and it's no, the show must go on.
Now the show must go on, and rightly so. I'm pleased that we can deal with what the world's handing out at this moment in time. The government opened the doors yesterday for a few weeks' time, and fair play to the ECB and everybody that's made the decision to sort of keep the wheels moving, and Ben Stokes as well. For I don't think it was a no-brainer whether he came back in and captained. I think if he was playing for Durham, which he has been, and he's been doing okay, it was right time for Ben to come back in. I think I quite liked what happened with Ben. Well, he was having a bit of cricket away from the limelight, but it's time to come back in. It's time to lead the country. An England captain needs must. And it's a chance to give some players who wouldn't normally have been in the squad or close to the squad, a chance to showcase their skills on the TV in front of a crowd and against a very, very strong, what looks a very strong Pakistan side. And let's see what we've got. And we talked about, me and John Norman talked about during the week on the following on podcast about all we're doing at the minute is confusing the matter, because we're just adding more players who are doing well into already an overgrown squad of players that are doing well in the white ball format to get them narrowed down for the 2020 World Cup or further squads coming down the road. This, hopefully, from England's point of view, hopefully, this gets more confusing because there's 9 uncapped players. They're all potentially going to get a go. If they all do well, that pool of about 23, 24 I talked about on following on during the week just might get to about 30. So, look, positive signs for England. If there's a good thing that comes out of a bad situation, is that we're gonna get a look at some of the best young talent that we've got, and let's see what they're made of.
As you mentioned, 9 uncapped players. Let's just go through them very quickly. Gloucestershire's left arm medium pacer David Payne, John Simpson, Middlesex keeper, Phil Salt, all-rounder Lewis Gregory, Zach Crawley, and Dan Lawrence, of course, are well-known England players, but haven't been capped in the one-day game before. Surrey's Will Jacks, Tom Helm, and a man you said a month ago you thought would play for England in the years to come. Bryden Cass. Amazing. I mean, he's a quick bowler primarily, but he scored runs. He's made a very good half century in the Blast. I just think of some of those players, they're into their 30s now. They would have thought their international aspirations had come to an end. I've just got this picture in my mind of them sitting down with a TV dinner with their wife or girlfriend, or maybe just putting the toddler to bed and thinking that about taking the dog for a walk later on, and suddenly the phone goes and they've been called up to play for England.
Well, the likes of John Simpson and David Payne, 2 guys, it's a reward, and I think it's a brilliant reward and fair play. The guys have worked tirelessly hard to forge a good career. Gloucester in one-day cricket are fantastic. Simpson's a very, very good gloveman, and it's a great reward. And it shows that even at sort of you get to close to 30, if you keep doing the right things, you get yourself in the right place, and you put yourself in a position to be the best professional you possibly can, then you don't know what's round the corner. And I'd like to think both of them would get a game, get an England cap. They're going to potentially get a cap to play for England. And I think that's fantastic. Talk about Cass. For me, Bryden Cass is one of the most exciting younger players that are out there at this moment in time, along with the likes of Joe Clark, who unfortunately he's isolated on a different way, or he would have been in the squad. I think Cass has got something, and I think England need to see him. I'm looking at the squad, and I want to see Lawrence play very much so, the way he plays Test match cricket. I think he's suited to the white ball game. And the interesting one in the squad for me, and I'm pleased he's in there because needs must and England need him, is Zach Crawley. Zach Crawley has to play all 3 games. He has to play because I still think there's a position there in a Test match for him. But you have to play him. There's no point bringing him out halfway through this game of county championships. You'll miss the next round of county championship games, which is the last one before you would probably think the test match starts in August. So if you're going to remove him from Red Bull game, which is something he needs at the moment, I think you have to play him in all these games and hope he can belt his way into a little bit of form. So they're the little conundrums that potentially the England selectors have got, with one eye on what's happening now in the moment, and it's needs must. But also there's a couple of players that need cricket and game time and middle time for potential test match selection in 5 or 6 weeks' time.
Just before we hear from England's Director of Cricket, Ashley Giles, we should mention as well that Chris Jordan, Ollie Pope and Tom Banton would surely have made the squad of 17. Jordan and Pope are both injured, groin and thigh respectively. Tom Banton is also isolating. But there are two further omissions, which we'll talk about after we've heard from Ashley Giles. No Sam Hain, who has one of the highest list A averages of all time for batsmen who've played more than 50 innings. The average is just a shade under 60. Sam Hain didn't crack the nod. And no Alex Hales. More on that in a moment. Here's Ashley Giles.
Just from the nature of what we were doing this year, playing all around the country, travelling a lot, hotels weren't sole use, so we were sharing certain spaces within the hotels, but not key areas like eating areas. And given this variant, which is clearly more infectious, I'm not the expert on that, but it clearly is, the risks of us catching infection in the group were obviously going to go up. And we hoped, as I say, yesterday morning, that we might have had a couple of positives and we could isolate them. But given the size of the spread within the group, the only thing to do was to isolate the whole group and move forward with a completely different squad. What we've never questioned is Alex's ability. The reason he's absent from these teams previously are for different reasons, and they're not things for us to get into now, I don't think, and not things for us to get into over the last 12 hours. So, that's all I'm going to say on it.
England's Director of Cricket, Ashley Giles. I don't know. We've spoken a lot about Alex Hales. Ashley Giles says that it's not the time to talk about it. Maybe we should take that cue, Harmy. We've said a lot. We've spoken a lot. Owen Morgan did say that the door wasn't closed. I suggested that it had very firm and rusty hinges if it wasn't exactly closed. But it does appear now that his England days are over.
Yeah, it does. And you don't want to dwell too much on it because there'll be a lot of talk about Hales in this the lead up to the first ODI. And that's disrespectful to the players that are in the squad who are potentially going to make their debuts or getting the experience of the first time. I thought the door was closed. In fact, I didn't think the door was there. I really didn't think the door was there for the simple fact, when you had the likes of Roy Bairstow, Butler, Stokes, the big boys going at the top. Alex Hales is a wonderful player. Talent alone, he walks into the team, not a problem. Something's gone on that we don't know inside that they don't want to let us know, and it's Owen Morgan, and it's Owen Morgan. He's decided that this team is better off without Alex Hales. So I think a conversation in the near future along the lines of Kevin Peterson and Sir Andrew Strauss, when Peterson thought he was coming back in, the door's closed. You either announce your retirement or we come out with a statement saying, look, Alex Hales has been a wonderful cricket for England. It's time to move on. We wish him all the best with Notts and his teams around the world, but the England cricket team will move in a different direction. Simple as that. Takes everybody out of the equation. You say well done to Hales and you move on. And you like guys, the likes of, you mentioned Sam Hain. I thought he was one of the first ones that sprung to mind when I heard about this. But I think it was possibly because of the wicketkeeper situation, you have to bring Duckett in. And also, I think it was probably three in the selector's mind. It was two from three, and it was Hale, probably Sam Hain, Will Jacks, and obviously Ben Duckett keeps wicket. So Duckett was in, and I think they've gone for Jacks just over here. And I like what I see with young Jacks. I thought he batted really well on TV the other night. He's a very explosive player. I think the boy's got a future. So that is the conundrum, because you've got Lawrence, because you've got Crawley and Stokes, bring in the experience, and you need the experience of James Vincent, David Milan. Don't think there was just enough spots for the young, the Warwickshire inexperienced batsmen. So they've gone with Jacks over Haynes. And
finally, two very quick questions. What would you say to those people who say that the value of an England cap has been lessened now by this? And very quickly, if Darren Stevens was 25 and not 45, on form, would he have been in this squad?
I think if he was 25 on form, he's in the squad. He's in the squad because he's been taking wickets and scoring runs. Even at 45, I tell you what, I bet he wasn't far away. Because his stats are just standing up. They stack up against anybody else in the country at this moment in time in a very, very poor Kent side. So I'm sure Steve-O would have been looking for his phone and waiting for the message. But now, unfortunately, Steve-O, it hasn't come. The devaluing the cap, I was a big one on that. Do not devalue the cap. Do not give them out willy-nilly. But unfortunately, we are in a position in the COVID world that we have to roll with the times and the way things is going. So I don't see this devaluing the cap. I really don't. These guys some of them are on the start of their career. There's a few on the end of their career, or close at the end of their career, who is just reward for being very, very good professionals. Needs must at this moment in time. So that supersedes any devaluation of the England cricket cap.
I say I'm particularly pleased for the likes of David Payne, John Simpson. You mentioned
Absolutely.
them as well. That's terrific. It's recognition for excellent, not just consistent careers, but form this season as well. We're still all digesting the news. Just a reminder that the entire England ODI squad has gone into isolation following 7 positive COVID-19 cases in the camp. That's 3 players and 4 members of the management and coaching staff. Everybody was deemed to be a close contact. The entire squad has gone into isolation. Not entirely sure how long that will be for. But one thing that does come across very obviously, Harmy, is that there's no sense of panic. The medical protocols and professionals are all in place. Everybody seems to be quite calm about this. I mean, this is the most mental thing that's happened in cricket, with a squad having to be picked 48 hours, a brand new squad being picked 48 hours before the first game. And yet, do you agree there is a sense of calmness around the place?
Yeah, I do. I also, it helps when they're at home and there's a bigger pool to players to pick from. If this was Pakistan, then the series would certainly be off. I think it's a lot easier, and you were in South Africa when England pulled out over a year ago, but I think we're further down the road in understanding what this pandemic is. So yes, there's got to be flexibility. Yes, there is an element of calmness. I've known Ashley Giles for a long, long time, and I've said this many times on this show. I would trust Ashley Giles with my life. I really would. He is a very, very good, honest man. Tells you it straight, and I think having Gilo at the helm, along as well before him of Sir Andrew Strauss, 2 guys who don't panic under pressure, really panic. I'd imagine the big fella's ticker would have been going through the night last night trying to find out a solution and getting players in place, and phoning county chief executives up to say, right, you're going to need 3 substitutes for tomorrow because I'm taking them 3 out of your team and them 3 out of them team. But I think common sense has prevailed. No cancellation. Cricket must go on. When you hear Ash speak, and Tom Harrison as well, there is an element of calmness there, and we are fortunate in this country. I think we've got 2 good men at the top of running our game.
It's ironic in a sense because just a couple of days ago, Owen Morgan was talking about not rushing Ben Stokes and Jos Buttler back into international cricket. He said that their main focus for this summer would be red ball cricket, the Test series against India. But that was a very, very quick change of mind. This is what he said a couple of days ago.
The last thing we want to do is rush somebody back and jump with the level of intensity from county cricket to international when there isn't necessarily a need. So happy for Ben to just progress as he sees fit, and obviously with one eye on the Test match series as well. It was
Owen Morgan saying that Ben Stokes wouldn't be rushed back into international cricket. I must say, when he said it at the time, my instant thought was, well, his finger's healed. He's played a couple of games. I'm pretty sure he'd love to be rushed back into international cricket.
Yeah, I think as well. I think this was a put back into the. We talked about this about 4 or 5 weeks ago at the end of the New Zealand series. Who would be available for the 2 4-day games that need 4-day cricket? And I think Ben Stokes was one of the ones that possibly could do with the longer format of the game rather than the shorter format of the game, along with the likes of Dom Sibley, who got an absolute beauty yesterday off of Young Potts. What a ball that was, by the way, just taking it away. But it was, again, a dismissal from a bowler who would bowl it. It was like an international cricketer, bowling a good ball outside off stump. Sibley nicked it. Crawley got done by Anderson. These guys needed red ball cricket. Did Stokes need red ball cricket? Probably not, because I think Ben can, he's experienced enough now to go in and come out and understand what the game is. But I think 2 4-day games under the radar would have done Ben Stokes the world of good, coming back into what is a ridiculously pressurised situation. But needs a must, and he doesn't just come back as a player. I think this is an extreme circumstance. Possibly, if it wasn't for the case of Ben Stokes had to come back as captain, leader of our country against Pakistan, then you might not have seen Ben come back. Joss is a little bit further down the line from an injury point of view, so he can't come back. But I think Ben coming back, he had to come back because he was captain. It was the most important thing that we had a leader at the top who had stature in the game, and that had to be Ben Stokes. So even though he was looking at red ball, I think needs as must, and Owen Morgan was right to say what he did 2 days ago, but it shows the flexibility in the world now. You need to be ready at a drop of a hat to come in and represent your country. And Ben's case, he's going to lead it.
Absolutely. Just to point out, there are lots of people, millions of people in England at the moment who are living largely normal lives. They've been vaccinated. The public health spokesman the other day said that masks would soon no longer be compulsory. There'll be a lot of people saying, like, well, is this a lot of fuss being made about? Not much, really. With such a high vaccination rate, it does mean that if you contract the virus, you're very, very unlikely to be hospitalized. So there will be some people asking whether this is an overreaction. But there are all sorts of things involved that we don't really know much about, like insurance, life insurance, broadcast deals, sponsorship, and you just can't afford to take a risk, can you? So yes, it might seem like it's an overreaction, but rather that than you can't just carry on blasé and say, well, let's just get on with it, and you haven't got symptoms.
Yeah, there are, and there will people be rightly saying, you know what, there is only so many people being, positive tests and all that. But they've also got to remember, and that'll be people rightly saying from the outside world. But then people have got to understand and rightly say, this is professional sport. This is top level sport where the intensity's got to be high. We've seen 2 or 3 incidences recently in sport, and it's a breathing difficulty when it comes to it. Your symptoms might not come on until you're out in the middle. And then all of a sudden, with the energy you're trying to give off, with the heat that's in the country, and well, not in the northeast at the minute, but in some places where it's very, very warm. It was a warm 1-day series against Sri Lanka. And if your symptoms come on mid-test match, and all of a sudden you're in the throes of what's, whether a good spell of bowling or even in the field, then all of a sudden you are running the risk from a health point of view of making things a hell of a lot worse. So I think common sense has prevailed. I think we still have to be careful, especially when it comes to elite sport and making sure our players are well looked after, because I can guarantee there'll be professional footballers out there, there'll be professional rugby players out there and professional cricketers out there who will possibly think they've had it, or they have definitely had it because they've been tested, and they're still, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months after the event, still not feeling back to 100%. Because of the long COVID that goes with it. So we have to be careful in judging decisions that are made. They're not made on a whim. They are made with the best interests of the individuals who they're in charge of. So Ashley Giles and Tom Harrison aren't making this decision lightly. They're making it in decisions because they can control what happens when the players are off the field. They can't control what happens when they're on the field. That's up to the player. But when they're off the field, there have to be a protecting ring around these players, and that comes from the top. And at the minute, common sense has prevailed. We've taken them all out. And then if we have to drip feed them back in because the negative tests have come and it's right for them to come back in, then so be it. Then there's the harder decisions down the line. But at this minute in time, I think the right decision has been made.
I have a friend who's a professional swimmer who was asymptomatic, did his 10 days isolation, thought he was absolutely fine, got back in the pool, and thought he could just resume training. And in his own words, he said he almost drowned. He suddenly, he was short of breath. He couldn't do the laps and put the hours in that he had been doing before he had it. And he still didn't display any symptoms other than when he tried to push himself in the pool, which is not a place you want to be struggling for breath. Let's turn our attention now then to the Pakistan squad. What can we expect from them? I've been frustrated for years and years, thinking that too many people come up with the same old descriptions of Pakistan. They're mercurial and they're unpredictable, and you never know what you're going to get. But I mean, only a couple of months ago, they were in South Africa, and they were all of those things. They were squandering winning positions. They were 160 for one, chasing 220 in one of the ODIs, and got home off the last ball. I mean, it was just absolutely crazy. There's a lot of talent in this squad. There is some that is missing. Harris Sahel has been ruled out through injury. No Mohamed Amir. I mean, they've had some good results. They were expected to beat Zimbabwe. They beat South Africa comfortably, 3-1 in the T20s and 2-1 in the ODIs. But again, they not only did they squander winning positions, but they dragged themselves back from losing positions. Fakhar Zaman, the opener, made 193 in a ODI when Pakistan were 200 for 7, chasing 340. So I know it's a cliche. People say you don't know what to expect, but as with many cliches, there's a lot of truth in it.
There are a lot of truth in it, and that is Pakistan. Unfortunately, it is. It's gone from even the days of Waqar and Wasim, when they won the World Cup in '92. They were a team that were out the World Cup, and then they won it with the great Imran Khan. And then during my time, the Inzaman and Yunus, fantastic players, and you just thought, we stay in the game, we've got a chance of winning, because they'll give it to us. They'll make a mistake. I don't see this side has changed too much. I think they've got a little bit better, in a little bit more stable. They look as though they're a lot more of a team of actually a team rather than the team of very, very good individual players. The bowling attack is very good, very, very strong. Left armer in Shashin Afridi. He is a fantastic bowler. They've got talent, all-round talent in the middle order, and you mentioned Fakhar Zaman at the top. He is dangerous. He is dangerous when he gets going. So it's not even to England's ear side. I didn't think it was a foregone conclusion that England would comfortably sweep the board. I thought it's going to be a lot closer contest between Pakistan ball and England bat, when you had the likes of Roy Bairstow and Morgan, Root, everybody else. I think that is where the contest is. If England can bat well against the ball of Pakistan, then I think even with the bowlers that England have got at their disposal in their own back garden, I think that will get England in a position to win the game. And I think a lot will hinge on the big players turning up. Hassan Ali in the middle order is a very, very good batsman, but he's also a very, very good bowler. Dangerous batsman at the bottom of the order and a very, very good bowler. So he is one to watch out for. But they're a good side. They are a good side. It's a next level up from Sri Lanka in competition that England need going forward.